Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. It's a DFS review video for the 2021 John Deere Classic, where Lucas Glover is your winner. These review videos are meant to review the process leading into this tournament, see what went well, what didn't, where we can improve, those kind of things. And I like to do it with you guys so you can see on screen. I'm a visual learner. I like visual proof. So it's kind of my way to show you guys how well the bucket system did. Look at some other stats to determine, what matters here at the John Deere Classic, or perhaps, how random, how volatile was this week. So if you want to see basically that in depth, I have timestamps in the description below. Those timestamps can also be found on YouTube's progress bar. Go ahead and just hover over it. You'll find timestamps there. Let's go ahead and get in this thing. So let's start with kind of a recap of the tournament. I like to start here. The very first thing that I'm going to talk about before I talk about golfers is target score and pass results. Or not so much pass results, but just the target score we talked about in the preview video. I think it was in the preview video, where we were looking basically at all the top scores every single year, and we kind of came to the conclusion that around 20 under was going to win. I think I predicted like 20 to 22 under was going to win this tournament. But the one thing that I said to keep an eye on is second place, second or third place. 19 under was basically the number I said most of our second place golfers get to. And the majority of our golfers get to, 19, 18 under will probably mark up most of our golfers inside the top 5 of the tournament. And it just depends on how the winners really do comparatively to the rest of the field. In a lot of these, you can see the winner is 2 shots clear, 3 shots, or maybe in Michael Kim's case, 8 shots clear of second place. But second place, for the most part, is around, 19 to 18 under. I mean, 2017, 2016, we don't really see that. But most of the other years we see 19, 18 under is second and third place. Well, Lucas Glover won at 19 under. So this still was a birdie fest, as we all predicted. It was a little bit different. I mean, the weather was super weird throughout the entire tournament. It was hard to predict. We knew there were going to be thunderstorms. You just never know when those things come through. You actually don't even know if there will be any lightning within those quote-unquote thunderstorms. But we knew that it was going to be wet. And usually, it being rainy and wet would prove to have lower scores. But for whatever reason, that didn't happen in this tournament. And maybe it was because the strength of field was extremely low. Let's go. I just want to show you what the strength of field was by going to my 2021 DK page. It was 124. 124 ended up being the strength of field. And just to give you kind of a reference, the Palmetto Championship, which was a brand new tournament, it did have number 1 Dustin Johnson, who was number 1 in the world, I should say. He was there because that was his home state, and obviously he's basically trying to support that tournament. They had a strength of field of 198. We hadn't seen anything lower than that since I started kind of keeping track of this, which went back 8-10 weeks, something like that. So the Palmetto Championship was the lowest. This ended up being the lowest. And maybe because of that, our scoring wasn't as low. That is maybe one way to look at it. The other way, it could just be weather dependent. And I could chalk it up to weather just as easy as I could chalk it up to strength of field. So maybe it was a combination of the two, but that kind of led to a quote-unquote higher score in comparison to the rest of the years. So anyways, Lucas Glover, first victory in over 10 years. It's his 4th victory on tour. It's weird, the stat of this is his first tournament in 10 years. The last golfer we had that happen to was Stuart Sink when he won the 2020 Safeway Open, which technically is a part of this season. So Stuart Sink won the 2020 Safeway. His last tournament that he won was the 2009 British Open. Lucas Glover's last tournament he won was the 2011 Wells Fargo Championship, but he was the 2009 US Open champion. Lucas Glover was. So it's weird that the parallels go so close to Stewart Cink's. Both first-time winners in over 10 years. Both won the 2009 major championship. Both are over 6 feet tall. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of a fun parallel to do. I can't remember how tall Stewart Cink is. I think I have his Wikipedia up. Hold on. Cink is 6'4". Lucas Glover is 6'2". So very close in height. You can almost say they're the same type of profile of golfer. I don't know. I don't know how many more parallels we can run, but it's interesting to say the least. Ryan Moore shows up inside the top 5. I mean, he finished second, tied with Kevin Na. Ryan Moore plays this golf course really well, so that shouldn't come to any surprise. I mean, Ryan Moore has been playing such poor golf this whole year. The only narrative that you could actually go with was course history, or really the only thing you would have gotten onto Ryan Moore was because of how well he's played here. And that just kind of goes to show that certain golf courses fit certain golfers. Now, some people don't believe in course history. Yeah, there's going to be some bumps along the way when it comes to course history, but for the most part, golfers who are comfortable at a golf course are going to be playing better golf at that golf course. Kevin Na finished a second. He's one of those golfers who has played here well before, just like Ryan Moore, but he's a streaky golfer. So seeing him up here isn't really a surprise to me. It's just, when will he show up? It's a guessing game. Like I'm not positive, when that'll happen. The rest of the guys here, I mean, I talked about Luke List earlier on the week, saying how I like him here, but I don't know why he withdrew from the tournament prior to this one. If it was vertigo related, it was going to be difficult to get back on him, but obviously finished top 4, so it looked good, or it looks good, I should say. Adam Schenk was a 6K golfer that I was really on, that I liked. I don't like to play too much of a 6K golfer. 10%'s my cap. I think I played him in like 9%. Could have been 10%. But he was up there. It's all about putting the right lineups together. He just wasn't on one of the better lineups for me. But yeah, here's what rounds out the top 10. Sebastian Munoz, Hank Lebioda, Seamus Power, and Brian Stewart. And we'll get more into these golfers when we kind of review the entire spreadsheet. But I always like to go from here and talk about the optimal lineup versus the $1 GPP winning lineup. It's usually the GPP, or it's the GPP with the highest entry fee that I enter. So it's $1 this week, the $1 GPP. That winning lineup used $50,000 of the salary. It consisted of Lucas Glover at $8,600, Kevin Na at $9,500, Ryan Moore at $8,300, Luke List at $7,300, Seamus Power at $9,000. So that was his most expensive golfer. And then scroll down, Henrik Norlander, who finished 28th at $73,000. So he had two 7K golfers, two 9s. I'm sorry, Seamus Power wasn't his highest price. It was Kevin Na. Two 9K golfers and two 8K golfers. $50,000. It scored 665.5 points. The optimal lineup also used $50,000. And usually when I talk about the optimal lineup, I'm talking about trying to find all 6 of our golfers inside the top 10. Sometimes, not all 6, finish inside the top 10 to be in this optimal lineup. Case in point, Patton Kizzire is here. He finished 11th place, so one shot out of the top 10, but either way, didn't finish top 10. And the optimal lineup consisted of all the golfers with little black tick marks here. So it was Lucas Glover at 86, Kevin Na at 95, Ryan Moore at 83, Sebastian Munoz at 81, Scott Brown at 66, and Patton Kizzire at 89. So that consists of 4 8K golfers, a 9K golfer, and a 6K golfer, which is extremely random. I don't remember the last time we saw something like that. When it comes to optimal lineups, obviously, I review every optimal lineup in the preview videos. I don't think we saw this scenario happen. So yeah, super interesting. But another way I like to look at this, I actually kind of missed Patton Kizzire the first time around. So I created a realistic, a quote unquote realistic, because without Patton Kizzire, I didn't get to 50,000. I got to like 48.7 or something like that. So I looked at a realistic lineup, and that consisted of Lucas Glover 86, Kevin Knott 95, Ryan Moore 83, Sebastian Munoz at 81, Scott Brown at 66, and Hank Lebioda at 8,400. So with those 6 golfers, pretty much the same thing happened. We had, 4 8K golfers this time? A 9K golfer and a 6K golfer equaled $49,500 when it comes to the salary on that. And that does include all 6 golfers inside the top 10. Now, the optimal lineup scored 699.5 points. This realistic optimal lineup scored 693. So 6 points away, or 6 points difference. And really, it was like 30 points more when it comes to the difference between the GPP winning lineup and the realistic lineup. So still would have won a GPP by doing the realistic look, finding all the golfers inside the top 10. But this is one of those rare cases where the optimal lineup has one golfer outside of the top 10. So that rounds out the optimal versus the GPP winning lineup. Let's go ahead and take a look at a few things. I like to start kind of looking at the SweetSpot score. So I can filter out the top 10 and just look at the top 10, filter out the rest of the golfers. What I want to see whenever I'm analyzing this is, first of all, knowing how many golfers are in the field. During the John Deere Classic, there's 156 golfers in this field. If you split that in half, we get 78. I want to see most of the golfers here under that 78 number, because this is their rank. Using the SweetSpot score, this is their rank. And as you can see, Scott Brown 92 or 92nd, and Brian Stewart 79. I think we can give ourselves a win on that one. So all but one golfer was under that halfway point. And why this is important to me is, if this becomes the norm, and the SweetSpot score is based off of my own metrics that I look at. I go over this during the strategy video every single week. I'm looking at official world golf ranking, all the grass stats, course history, bogey avoidance, birdie or better, recent form, looking at DK average, recent form average, and scoring average within that recent form, and then season-long DK average and scoring average. That creates a score that I calculate over here, and based off that score is a rank. So if this rank if we can get most of our golfers under that, we can eliminate half the field, which really narrows down our player pool. And with that narrow player pool, we can target our bucket system golfers much, much easier. I mean, it's still kind of in a trial version for me. I'm still kind of tinkering around with it. I don't think my score is the best score you possibly have, but it has proven to be kind of successful for me. So as you can see, again, all but one. And Scott Brown was at least under 100, so I could eliminate 56 golfers by even just using a rule like, I want to grab just the top 100 golfers and try to find, player pools or plays that I want based off that. I can set my exposure levels, which again we went through during the strategy video. I can set my exposure levels to account for this and only use those golfers that are ranked, lower than 100. So you can see Scott Brown for me had 0% of my ownership. I'm okay with that. Now, he was a part of the optimal lineup. He was also part of the realistic optimal lineup. Without Scott Brown, I'm not getting there. So I need Scott Brown. So I should, ideally we would want the score to reflect that, where he isn't ranked 92nd. He's ranked like 60th or 70th at worst. And that way we can play some of him. But as it stands now, he wasn't a golfer that I was targeting. And nor should I think you guys should target him. I mean, I can still create a lineup that works by using Adam Schenk instead. This is what I thought the optimal lineup was. It was Sebastian Munoz, Adam Schenk, Luke List, Kevin Na, Ryan Moore, and Lucas Glover. To me, I thought this was kind of a better lineup, and I bet you that probably scored more than that GPP winning lineup, 695. So yeah. Now that I think of this, this actually did score more than the other one that I shared with you guys. Okay, well, didn't matter. They all still beat the GPP. That's what matters. But either way, something like this would have worked out fantastically. I think I built most of my lineups going 10-9-8, and I don't know if I did that on accident or whatever. I still had a good week. Like, I profited $30. I mean, I didn't put a lot of money in this week. I think I put in 30, so I came back with 60, which turned out really well. I'm glad to be playing with that money for the Open Championship next week. But anyways, SweetSpot Score ended up working well. And with that SweetSpot Score, I go into looking at Time Pairings. Again, I do this all throughout the strategy. And really what we were focusing on were anchor Time Pairings. And those were all these golfers that I had highlighted in this dark green, which uses the SweetSpot Score. It uses scoring average and DraftKings average. Also, it all goes hand in hand. So if I sort by this, and the part of the thing that I went over and I talked about, we know this group here was kind of a quasi group because we didn't have one of our golfers actually better than field average and scoring average or DraftKings average. That's why they have this highlighted red. I covered this in the strategy video. So really my marquee groups were the 4 groups that I'm highlighting right now. So these 4 threesomes, I had told you every single year, or not every year, every single week, probably for the last 8 weeks, we've found that each of these groups produces a top 10 or a top 20 finisher. And then I think it was either the Palmetto or one of those tournaments around the Palmetto proved for that not to be correct. But what ended up happening is we have found on average, and it's it's a ridiculous rate, that 2 of our optimal lineup golfers come from these Time Pairings, these marquee Time Pairings. And it's, to me, it almost seems logical, and it's probably logical to some of you guys too, because you're like, well, these are the better golfers in the field. Most of our 10K golfers were in these marquee Time Pairings, which right away you'd probably just think those are the golfers you want to anchor around, which that's kind of, I went that route a little bit. But as you can see, Kevin Na was in one of these groups. He was paired with Daniel Berger and Zach Johnson. They all made the cut. Kevin Na finished the second. And then Sebastian Munoz, unfortunately, had to be paired up with Siwoo Kim. I kind of tweeted about this, that once Siwoo Kim finally withdrew, he looked awful, by the way. He cited a injured back, lower back or something. He had a sore lower back. I can't remember it had something to do with his back. But once he withdrew, both CT Pan and Sebastian Munoz were playing better golf. Unfortunately, CT Pan couldn't make the cut, but Sebastian Munoz did. Both of them finished top 10. Both of them were in the optimal lineup. The group right below him with Russell Henley, Maverick McNeely, and Sepp Straka, both of these golfers, Henley and McNeely, could have really, they could have introduced themselves inside the top 10 and be a part of the optimal lineup. Maverick McNeely had a hole-in-one. So if he would have gotten a couple more birdies, his score would have been that much better. He's probably sitting at one of the top 5 DK scores because of his hole-in-one, but he finished 18th. It still goes to show 3 of the 4 groups all produced top 20 finishers. And I kind of shifted it to top 20. Like, we find a lot of top 20 finishers. And what I was telling you guys during the strategy video when I was building lineups, I'm trying to find my favorite twosomes to pair up. I don't know how much Kevin Na and Sebastian Munoz I did. I guess we can take a look. This is kind of, I hand built lineups this week. The optimizer, it works, but it's just not producing the type of results that I want. Let's see. Kevin Na is really easy to spot because he's this light red color. Let me zoom in for you guys. No Kevin Na, Sebastian Munoz, none there. We almost had Maverick McNeely. Here we go. Here's one. Aaron Wise was a part of this one. Doug Gim, Charles Howell III, Jason Duffner. I think they all made the cut. I don't know how well this lineup ended up doing, but I did have one Kevin Na, Sebastian Munoz. Just kind of showing you guys that I do follow what I say. Na, Sebastian Munoz. I also had Russell Henley in this one. Kyle Stanley, Denny McCarthy didn't make the cut, and I don't remember what Roger Sloan did. I don't think he did either. Yeah. So I had 2 lineups, gave myself a chance, just ended up not working out. But either way, I do practice what I preach. And I think this is how we do it going forward. This is a good spot to start our lineups with. Now, on top of this, if I open this back up to everybody, and then go by finishing position. So on top of this, what I like to do is find anchor buckets. Now, I usually do anchor buckets by looking at everything that has a minimum of at least 1 within the top 5 frequency section of this. And we only came out with 3 buckets. Last week 1, recent form 1, recent form 2. So we can start here, and basically these are the minimums that I always look at. So I'm looking at 1 last week 1 inside the top 10. Do we find one under the last week 1s? We sure do. Brian Stewart. He's the only one. Ooh, we have filters. None. There we go. Sorry. Last week 1s. Brian Stewart is the only golfer to show up. Let me just double check that I have the right amount of golfers here. Okay, yeah. So Brian Stewart, he's our only last week 1. So we can check that one off the list. That one counts. And what was my exposure level to Brian Stewart? 2%. I did not want to play more than 2%, so I wasn't getting there. Recent form 1s, we wanted to find 1 here as well. And I can tell you right now, they're 2. So that one hit as well. And then the last one is recent form 2s. We want to find at least 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. 5. Either way, that one hit too. We can take a look at kind of the projections. Last week 1, this did not hit. Recent form 1, this did not hit as well. But recent form 2s did. That 4.45. So the projections for me, I have to work on that. But really my minimums are here. Like this is what I'm setting. If I'm putting in these numbers in the optimizer, I'm like, please spit this out for me. The other buckets here, there's not enough data, and I kind of realized this last week because the Rocket Mortgage Classic only has 3 years of data. I feel like you need at least 3 years of data to normalize some of these stats where the averages end up being pretty spot on, or even these minimums, maximums. The one thing, I don't like to look at salary. I like to give it as an idea. I can tell you right now, 10K, it shows you want at least 1. That didn't hit. 7K shows you want at least 3. Only 2 7K golfers finished inside the top 10. That was Luke List and Brian Stewart. So that didn't hit. I mean, we could go to 11th place and use Harold Varner III as kind of a consolation. But that wouldn't be your top 5, which obviously that's what I show here. And in fact, I don't think there's any top. Oh, Luke List would have been the only top 5. So 1. So that minimum will go down to 1 next year. And that will be the minimum that I'll want to play. And then 6.5 and above, we wanted at least 1. I can tell you that happened. Projected 2, that also happened, but the minimum for top 10 did not happen. So Scott Brown and Adam Schenk were the only 6K golfers. Now, Sean O'Hare, Cameron Champ, they finished 11th as well. They were very close to improving that number, but 11th place in these optimal lineups do not count. Or within the bucket system, I mean. They don't count for me. We can open it up a little bit. Actually, the last thing to talk about were strokes gained 3s. And I wanted at least 3. So we had 4. Which wasn't terrible. But it didn't hit. Well, technically it did hit the projections. I always round down. Even if it's like 4.98, I always round down. So it works. for me here, and then 3 for my top 5 frequencies. Top 5 that did, yeah, that hit. So it worked for that. I wasn't really a believer of that stat. I really don't like to look at salary or strokes gained. Again, there's not enough data. I only have 2 years, I think, with both of those pieces of information. We didn't have a John Deere Classic last year, so my stats usually for salaries and strokes gained go back to 2018. DraftKings, I don't think, started doing contests for golf until 2018 for like full season events. They did majors and stuff like that, but it never became a full thing, I don't think, until 2017. So I believe I have 2017 salary stats, right? Yeah, 2017. So 2017 would have been their first full year of salaries. So 17, 18, 19. I guess I have 3 years of data. Maybe I should change my normal, the comment I made about these stats normalizing over, 3 years. Maybe we need like 5 years of data, as most of the bucket system's based off of. It's 5 years of data. Anyways, moving on from there, I can open this up and select everybody, and I have minimums now set where I'm on at least one out of the top 10s. This one, let's see, do I have, yeah, I have this up. So I'm just going to show you what this looks like. I know this looks messy. Looks like a child did it. This is just using snipping tool. You can see which buckets actually worked out. And I've circled the ones that did work out. Strokes gained, 6s did not. So I can just go ahead and cross this off. We didn't see any of them inside the top 10. So yeah, that didn't work out. Obviously, the 0s, they're not part of our anchor buckets. But we're looking at the 3 main ones last week: recent form, or I should say recent form 1, recent form 2. I don't know why I just said last week and then recent form. Last week 1s, recent form 1s, recent form 2s. They all hit with their anchor buckets. So on that front, it was 100% successful. The rest of these, this is probably the worst tournament I've ever seen the bucket system perform at. And the bucket system was created because of this tournament, essentially. I wanted to find out why Michael Kim won the tournament, try to find the trends that led up to him winning. And the only thing that I could think of is that he missed the cut the week before. And that was one of those big, that's your number one bucket for last week, were missed cuts. And I mean, we've seen a minimum of 1 all the way up to 8. We saw a minimum of 1 this year. So like the bucket continues to trend in the correct direction, but it didn't give me the projected amount that I thought we were going to have. And this leads me to my next point. I said this, I think, in the strategy video. I want to include the strength of field stats. So like I'm starting to collect this information. Like, how many points do they, does each golfer push towards the strength of field score? Like, I should say add to that strength of field score. And like, if I do that, if I sort, I mean, it's based off of 2 stats: official World Golf Ranking and FedEx ratings, which is your home scoring system. I can't remember what they call it, but obviously it's a PGA Tour event. We're using FedEx points. So it's those 2 rankings. Those rankings, then there's a calculation that provides points. And you can see what these golfers provide towards that strength of field. So our best rated golfer would have been Sungjae based off of this, Sungjae M. And then it would have been Daniel Berger from there. Surprisingly, Kevin Na was 3rd. I didn't really see that. And surprisingly, looking at the results here, we have a lot of top 11 finishes we could have chosen from. We could have created a lineup easy with these guys. Cameron Champ was up there. I mean, he came out of nowhere, kind of. Lucas Glover even shows up here. So these 6 golfers that I just highlighted, that's 48,100. We have some wiggle room we can play with. We don't need a 6K golfer. I mean, we could just choose Hank Lebiota. That's 49,700. So we could have chosen 6 golfers from the top 20 score. What provides. But I mean, I think we have a bunch of people at 1, and The 3 golfers just happened to be up there. Okay. So I got a little ahead of myself. I mean, we had how many? 38 golfers that provide 1 point or add 1 point to that strength of field score. So that would be a little bit trickier to try to find golfers. They don't really count for the top because I don't know how they would actually be rated if we were to actually sort this by whatever metric we wanted to. Anyways, moving on from there. I shouldn't say moving on. To wrap this up, I might add strength of field scores to each of these buckets because I think that's probably what really matters, what really will drive this forward. It's also knowing what the formula is. Like, what kind of formula do I need to provide to find these scores? And I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out eventually. And maybe I'll do it for the Open. We'll see. But anyways, that's wrapping a bow on the anchor buckets. The anchor buckets hit. The rest of the buckets with the projections that I had didn't hit. Obviously, the top 10 that I showed you, that didn't look very good. So let's see how many actually hit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We won't go into salaries and stuff. I just don't care to. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we had 2 that didn't. So 6 out of 8, that's pretty good. The projections that I had for these buckets, not very good, but that's more to do with my calculations. Like, I'm still trying to figure that one out. Like, I don't know what works the best. We'll figure it out. Let's see. So from here, I mean, I think that's gonna wrap up the video. But I always like to end these videos showing you the top 20 of every stat category for the field, and we start with grass stats. Actually. Yeah, because the bucket system itself is going to show you what course history is, but I can show you what. So we're looking at course history. This dates back to 2013. All of the results from 2013 back. You know, Keith Mitchell and Dylan Fratelli, they played their first tournament, the first John Deere Classic last year, I think. Same goes with any of these, like, perfectly round numbers where there are no decimal points, basically. You can kind of consider that they only played here once. So really, course history, it's hard to determine, you know, what's really good course history. I can't, from this page, filter it out by like, all right, I want to find at least guys who play twice and see what their course history is. But just doing this here, top 20 course history in this field, doesn't look like a very good stat to go by. Sure, we could find 2 of our optimal lineup guys, and that's not terrible. That's pretty on par. Grass stats, we find 3 of our optimal lineup guys when we sort by the best overall bent grass stats in the field. Again, this goes back to 2013. So that's kind of interesting. A good mix of top 10s, top 20s, and missed cuts. When we look at success rates of finishing inside the top 10 on bent grass, pretty much on par. 3 guys in our optimal lineup. A good mix of missed cuts and top 10, top 20s. 2021 bent grass stats. See, so I'm finding out more and more using this season's grass stat is probably the way to go. I mean, we do see a lot of missed cuts, and we do have a withdraw here with Siwoo Kim, which you can't forecast withdraws, really. But that's a lot of top 10s, or I should say it's a lot of top 11s. And we do see 3 of our optimal lineup golfers here. So that's definitely a stat I would consider. Moving on, we might as well just look at recent form. This is dating the last 7 weeks, or the 7 weeks leading up into this tournament. So it's really looking at the last 8 weeks. We went by recent form. That really doesn't give us a good tell. We do have 1 golfer who was in the optimal lineup. Way more missed cuts and withdraws than we have top 10, top 20s. So that's not a stat I really care to look at. We can look at our strokes gained stats. So we will start with tee to green, see how that works out. So your top 20. I would say this is a good stat to look at. We only have 1 optimal lineup golfer, but just looking at the top guys here, more top 10, top 11s, top 20s than we have missed cuts or withdraws. So tee to green was good. Off the tee is good. Definitely, it's good to see your top guys being inside the top 11, top 20. And we had 2 of our optimal lineup golfers here. And a little bit more than miscuts, so that's good. Approach stats, this is where it was. I mean, you wanted to look at approach for this tournament at least. And if you did create a lineup of nothing but approach golfers, you probably landed on some of these guys. We only have 1 golfer in the optimal lineup, but you see a lot of top 11, top 8s. So nothing bad choosing for approach. Around the green, it's usually never a stat to look at, as it isn't this week. Putting, same thing applies. And then the last thing is just kind of going through these ancillary stats. So driving distance, it's not terrible. Driving accuracy, I'm just going to cruise through these, by the way. That's okay. Good drive percentage. We have 1 golfer in the optimal lineup. That's it. Green in regulation. No optimal lineups there, and decent finishes. Proximity, no optimal lineup golfers here, but a good chunk of top 11, top 18s, so that looks good. 1 putt percentage just in total. Patton Kizzaire's up here. He's the only guy. Oh, Kevin Na and Sebastian Munoz. They would be like ranked 23rd and 22nd, or actually 22nd and 21st. So, hey, that's not terrible. 3 of our optimal lineup golfers inside the top 23 in this field. 1 putt within 5 to 10 feet. Sebastian Munoz shows up. We did have Adam Schenk there, so that was a good reason to be on him. 1 putt 10 to 15 feet. Nothing for optimal lineup golfers. Bogey avoidance. This is part of the SweetSpot score. 1 guy in the optimal lineup inside the top 20. That's it. Bogey or birdie or better. We had 2 golfers up here inside the top 20. But both those stats that we just went through, not great. And I keep track of total birdies and total eagles, but this all really depends on how many tournaments you're playing in a year. And since we don't see a lot, I mean, some of these golfers don't see a lot, but still finish decent, hard to really use that as a stat to go by. So anyways, that's going to conclude it. Conclude the John Deere Classic. Throughout doing this, I could tell my voice was starting to get a little worse. Was traveling, had a golf tournament yesterday, and afterwards we celebrated. So probably a mix of alcohol and just being a little fatigued. It's kind of producing the voice that I have currently. I know it's extremely nasally. But anyways, it was a fun weekend. I didn't get to see a lot of this tournament, which I don't think matters all that much. But it would have been good to see how Lucas Glover won. I didn't really get to see that part of it. Again, I was busy doing other things. But moving forward with the Open Championship, I should have a preview for you guys tomorrow. I might have a guest. We'll see. And it's going to be the same thing. So we'll have a preview. We'll have a strategy video. There could be a possibility where I'll try to create another video just as like a picks, like my favorite picks, just to see how something like that does, especially during a major championship. And what I mean by that is like how well the video does on YouTube. We'll double check. We'll see how all that works out. But again, expect a video tomorrow. I should have one out probably late, highlighting everything we typically do in a preview. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully you guys did well this week. If not, we'll get them next week. But I'm signing off. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you in that Open preview. All right, bye.